Describe God.
Describe?
Describe God.
Describe what?
Describe God.
I didn't get you.
Brahma.
Describe God? Oh. Describe God. If God could be described, that which you call as God wouldn't be worth pursuing.
Describe God, you can't. It is a ludicrous question. It is because there is a very important saying, I think it's in the Quran, but it's a very important saying. No one knows God but God.
If you agree that God is the ultimate, and then you should not say anything about God. You should not talk about God. You should not use any notions to describe God, including the notion being, non-being, beginning, ending, good and evil. None of these notions can be applied to God, because God is the absolute, is the ultimate. It's like nirvana. Nirvana is the extinction of all notions.
In other words, God is so big, so immense, so wonderful, so marvelous, so close to us, the source of our being, the giver of all gifts, that we can't possibly form a concept of Him. We can only accept Him, accept the mystery of this presence, and to contact Him through gratitude and love, which admittedly is not going to heaven, but at least it's a crack in the mystery that we begin to perceive that somehow everything that happens is manifesting the goodness of God, all appearances to the contrary notwithstanding.
I know in many cultures around the world, God has always been established as some kind of an entity. Any entity, however large it is bound to be a limited entity. When you say something is, any something is always a limited possibility. So when you say God as an entity, especially an entity that you can describe or define, that means it is a limited possibility. If it's a limited possibility, it's just like you. One more thing. So you want to meet that or not, it's up to you. But what is being referred to as God is just people's idea. It's a whole lot of belief systems. Every culture believes its own kind of God. I come from a culture where there are a million gods, It's a very rich culture. If you can create a million gods, it's nice. Now, people have always been believing that if you believe in one God, everything is going to be okay. But our history is sufficient proof to tell you, one God people have been creating lots of problems too.
Describe God. Where does He live? I need to start with saying, where does He live? Everywhere. How can there be anything that is not God?
Us, with our limited mind capacity, with our limited… we cannot know God. God is… the Sufis say God is beyond even our idea of the beyond. And where can God be found? God can be found everywhere, because one should never limit God.
To describe God, God can't be described. I like the Buddhist teaching. The Buddha talks about that which we call the unconditioned. He says to a group of monks, there is an unborn, undying, unchanging, uncreated. We can't say what God is, to label anything and say it's this, limits it to this. But when we talk about it in terms of the unchanging, the uncreated, that which is, whatever definition we can give it that's no definition, loose, then we come to God.
The greatest description of God is probably in Exodus, in which Moses asked God, if you recall your Bible studies, asked God, well, who shall I say sent me to Pharaoh to deliver Israel from the power of Egypt and its oppression? And the voice replied, tell them that I am sent you. And so the definition that God gave of himself is simply isness. I am without any limit whatsoever. Am meaning amness, isness. And so everything that is of his very nature has to be in relation to that which is without limit or any kind of limitation.
When you say describe God, you have already assumed that something exists. I would say, don't assume anything. Everything that you do not know, have the basic humility to see that I do not know.